Hello everyone. So as we know that yesterday we had the final encounter between Anish Giri and Baadur Jobava at the finals in the Mr.Dodgy Invitational 2.0 tournament. So in the finals, Anish Giri won with a score of 6 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses. Out of the score, Anish Giri had played 5 games from white, and out of that 5, Baadur Jobava played 4 of the games with the Petrov defense. But he lost all the 4 games from the Petrov defense. So now today we are going to analyze the gist of all these 4 games in which Anish Giri crushed the Petrov defense. So moving on, let's see on to the first game. So this game started with the move e4, e5, knight f3, knight to f6, knight takes pawn, pawn to d6, knight to f3 and knight takes pawn. So this is the typical Petrov defense. Here we go d4, d5 and bishop to d3 so as to attack this knight, and also the plan is to castle, bring the rook on the e file and attack on the king. So now Baadur responded with the move knight to c6, castles and bishop to e7. So now rook to e1 is not a threat. Knight b to d7, hoping to exchange this knight here and get this pawn for free. So black had to take it. Bishop takes, and now bishop to g4, pinning this knight. Now the plan of bishop to g4 is to take the knight first and then take this hanging pawn. So here Anish plays the move that is c3 so as to defend this pawn. Now castles and h3, kicking the bishop, bishop to h5, keeping the pin, and then g3. Now what's the idea of g3 is to bring the king to g2 and protect this, and as well as to bring the rooks from the h file and start a pawn storm. So we will see that this king would be very safe on this g2 square. Now moving ahead, black responded with rook to e8, king to g2 and bishop to g6. White played bishop to f4 so that if bishop takes bishop, then queen will come with a tempo outside the board. Now bishop to d6 played by Baadur, and then bishop takes bishop, h takes bishop and then bishop takes bishop. So after this trade, we go queen to d3, opening the squares for the a rook to come inside the game. Continuing, rook to e7 with the idea of doubling on the e file, and then rook a to e1, rook a to e8, and then rook takes and queen to b5. We are attacking this pawn, so it has to be defended, and Baadur played b6 to defend it. Then queen goes to a6 with some ideas of some back rank when this square is controlled with the knight. Then rook to e8 to prevent that back rank on c8, and then rook to e1 so as to exchange the rooks. Here, unfortunately, Baadur blundered by playing rook to e2. That was a mouse slip because his clear idea was to take this rook and exchange it. But he played the move rook to e2, and after queen takes e2, it was game over because black is complete rook down, and also the position is seeming crushing for white. So here Baadur Jobava lost his point unfortunately. But in the upcoming games, Anish showed his true power. Let's move on to the next game. So here we start the next game, and that too with the same line, the Petrov defense, and we come to the same position with knight takes e4, d4, d5, bishop to d3, knight c6, castles, bishop to e7, knight b to d2, knight takes, bishop to g4, c3 protecting this pawn first, then we go h3, bishop to h5 and g3. This g3 move is a novelty by Anish Giri which he found in the game because this seems very interesting by placing his king here. And that too, the king is very safe there. Now rook to e8, king to g2, bishop g6, and this time Anish Giri changed it by playing bishop takes bishop instead of bishop to f4 first. So here the game twirled. Bishop takes bishop, h takes bishop and rook to e1. Till here the game is slightly drawish and no one has a clear win from here. Now here Baadur played the move bishop to g6. Anish was thinking what does it do bishop to d6? Just want to exchange the rooks and you can go ahead. But I have a cunning move here. Guys, if you want to find this move you can pause the video and find it. So here the move is queen to b3. Wow, this is a double attack on these two pawns. So one of the pawn has to retreat. Here black took the rook takes and then rook to e7. Now we take this pawn. Why shouldn't we take a free pawn? Rook to b8 and then we take one more pawn. Wow, but this time it isn't free because rook takes b2 is coming. Then queen to a4 because this bishop is of course defended, so we just want to bring our queen outside from its territory. And then f6. Here Anish had to play the move c4 so as to open this position from here, but instead he played the passive move, that is bishop to c1, attacking the rook. Now rook goes to b8 and then h4. The plan is to push h4 h5 and open this whole king. King to f7, queen to c2, eyeing on the king's side. Now queen to d7 and now c4 as we discussed to open up the position. Here black played c6 so as to protect this pawn. Now bishop to d2, d takes c4, queen takes check, and now knight to d5. Now here white thinks, why is this lonely pawn sitting here? This is an outside passer, so let's promote it like this. So first white goes with the move rook to c1, rook c8 and puts this rook here stuck so that he is protecting this, and then we go a4, queen e6, a5, bishop a3 attacking this rook so that this can go away, but we go rook to c2, simple move. Black responds with the move queen to e4 and queen to b3. This is not we want to play, we just want to push this pawn, but seemingly the time pressure made Anish to play queen to b3. Now we have bishop to d6, a6 and rook to c7 so as to protect this. But we can go bishop to a5 with a tempo, developing this as well as attacking this. Now here black blundered by playing rook to d7, giving up this pawn. But white also miscalculated and played the move bishop to d2 instead. King goes to e7 and then white sees that we can do something on this rank. So let's go queen to c4 so as to defend this square and also attack this pawn. Black went rook to a7 so as to attack this, but this is just a free pawn. Anish thought that let's not go for the pawn, but let's play bishop to a5 with the idea of rook to e2 taking this queen. So black played queen to f5 and after that we gobble up this pawn. Now white is full 2 pawns up. King goes to f7 and the knight jumps in. You would see that this is a blunder, but no, because after pawn takes this is hanging as the queen can't defend it. That happened in the game, that is f takes knight and then queen takes knight with a check. King goes to e7 and then rook to c6, double attacking the bishop. Queen goes to e6 trying to exchange it, but after queen takes queen, king takes king and bishop to b4, the game is over, because if the rook comes here to protect this, we can just take all the moves, like say, let's exchange everything and then go with the a7. This is a queen and we will win. So on this move, that is bishop to b4, black resigned. Isn't these games interesting? If you are enjoying, then just take 1 second to go down and smash the like button so that everybody knows that this is going a good video. Now let's continue to the third game. Now after losing 2 games on the same line of the Petrov, then also Baadur went with that line. This seems something cunning. With the same line, now knight takes pawn, d4, d5, bishop to d3, bishop to d6, and from here it changes. It goes castles, castles and c4, opening up the game. c6 played by black and knight to c3. Now after the exchange, we have doubled pawns, but we are going to exchange the C and D pawns, so it is okay. We go with the exchange right away, and now bishop sits glad here. Bishop to f5, bringing its bishop away, and bishop to g5, bringing the bishop with a tempo, because he knows this time f6 can't be played as the king would be hanging. That is very risky. Queen to c7 played, and knight to h4. This is something risky because now this pawn is hanging right here, eyed by this battery of the bishop and the queen. But Anish thought that we have to go for the king, not for the pawn. Baadur also saw this and he went bishop to c8. But instead bishop to h2 was also great, and I don't see any point of retreating this bishop away. I could only see that he could play b6 and exchange these two bishops, but that is too long and he is wasting many moves. Continuing, we go h3, protecting the pawn, bishop to h2 check, king h1, bishop to f4 so as to exchange the bishops, and then knight to f3, protecting this bishop with the knight. Black continues with knight to d7, bringing his last piece, rook to e1, and bishop takes g5, knight takes g5, and knight to f6. White goes with queen to d3, eyeing on this pawn, h pawn, and now black seems uncomfortable with this knight, so he moves h6, pushing the knight. Knight goes back to f3 and knight to d5, because he thinks that this exchange will favor him. Instead he will get an isolated pawn, then also he thought it will favor him, so he went knight to d5. Bishop takes knight, c takes bishop, and rook to e3. Bishop goes to e6, and then rook a to e1, making a battery and doubling up on the e file. Rook a to c8, attacking this pawn, so that this is stuck right here, protecting it. And now knight to e5. Here black cannot play f6 to kick this knight, because this knight sits here attacking the rook, and also the bishop is gone because it is attacked by both the rooks. So f6 is a very huge blunder. Moving on, black goes with the rook f to e8 so as to protect this first, and then he could go f6, queen to d2, and now f6. The knight now sits on the g6 square like a monster in front of the king, so he could do anything by coming with his queen like this in some time. Let's check out. Now king goes to f7, attacking the knight, and then queen to c2, protecting it from the long diagonal. Now queen goes to d7, assuming some tactics right here, sacrificing if the rook is not there, and something in the future. Now knight goes to h4 and king to g8, queen to d3, bishop to f7, and knight to f5. This knight is looking at this square also with a knight fork when the queen is not there, so it's doing great on f5. Rook takes e3, rook takes e3, and now rook to e8. This is a quite dubious move because he didn't see this move. Rook to g3, eyeing on directly the king. This is coming. Also this is coming because it is pinned. The queen is going to join the attack and the king is gone. Now he goes with the move g5, but this pawn is simply hanging. After king to g7, he played knight to f5, but instead I think he's a pawn up, so he could exchange this also. And if king takes, then it's great because we have this check incoming. The king has to come here so as to protect this, and then we have queen to g6, so as the idea is this, king goes here and then take up this pawn. So I think we could have gone there, but knight goes to f5 instead, and then king to f8. The king is roaming around, surviving itself. Knight to e3, attacking the pawn, king to g7, king to g1, and then bishop to g6, attacking this queen. Now queen goes to d1, rook to e4, and queen to b3, attacking this pawn twice with the knight and the queen, and also this pawn is into some danger if the queen is not there. Only move here is bishop to f7, protecting it, and rook to g4 because he thinks the endgame favors him. Rook takes rook, h takes rook, and bishop to e6, eyeing on that pawn with the battery of this queen and the bishop, just like this. f3 played by white so as to protect it, and then king to f7, king to f2, queen c6, queen c2, and king g7. Knight goes to f1 because he just wants to go here, and place his knight here. Very good, and his queen is coming here, so it could be a checkmate there. So he went knight to f1, b5, knight g3, and bishop to f7, avoiding knight to h5. But this allows knight to f5, which is an even better move. Wow. Knight to f5 check, king f8, queen to b2, coming from in this here like this check, then queen to d7, queen a3 check, king g8, queen to e7, because he sees that after takes, king comes here, then knight c6 attacking these pawns here, he would convert it easily. This happened in the game, of course. And now a6. Here king e3 would have been the best, bringing the king after this like this, but instead he went knight to b4, attacking the pawns once again. a5, knight to c6, a4, and now a3. Bishop to e8, attacking the knight, knight b4, bishop f7, protecting the pawn, f4, with the idea that if takes, then we can go here and bring our king outside. King e7, king to f3, and g takes pawn. This is not the move he had to play because now the king comes easily and he'll crush the game. King to d6 and g5, good move. Takes, bishop to e6, g4, and now here black ran out of time. But also white is doing great, pushing with this pawn right here, and it is slight edge for white here. So like this, Anish won one more game in the Petrov defense. Now let's see in the fourth game, does he play the Petrov? Yes, he does, and repeats the same line. e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight takes pawn, d6, knight f3, knight takes pawn, d4, d5, bishop d3, knight c6, castles, bishop e7, knight bd2, knight takes, bishop g4, c3, castles, h3, bishop h5, g3, rook e8, king g2. So all the moves are same as the previous game. Here a6 played by black, queen c2, putting a battery on the h7 square, bishop g6, rook ae1, queen d7, and now bishop to f4, bringing out his bishop. Bishop d6 so as to exchange, bishop takes, queen takes, and h4. Here the idea is simple. He wants to push h5, h4, and also if needed he can bring his rook from here. So this is directly going on the king. Bishop takes d3, queen takes, h6, h5, and queen to f6. Here the knight goes to h4 with an idea of going f4 in the future. Queen g5, queen f3, and rook to e6. This is a blunder because after rook takes, f takes, and knight g6, you can see that this knight is a monster here. He can anytime go anywhere, and it's totally very good here. Knight goes to e7 so as to get rid of it. But here this was a mistake by white by exchanging the monster away. Now it's quite equalish. Rook to e1, queen e6, queen g4, rook a to e8, rook e5, rook e7, queen e2, king f8, and queen to e3. Now here we are putting a lot pressure here, and also we can also start pushing here and play f4, f5. King goes to e8, b3, king d7, and c4 here. Instead of c4, queen f3 was good, but also c4 is also good. It's not a blunder or something. Now here c6, c5, queen b8, b4, and we are going on. You can see that white has so much space right here, but black is in its own territory. Queen to e8, a4, rook to f7, and g4. Here instead of g4 we could have broken on b5 and go with this outside passer, but g4, rook to f6, king g3, g5, and h takes g5. This opposite was not so good because now you can see that white's king is little weak right here on g3 with this rook and queen eyeing on it, and this black king is safe. Queen goes to b3, queen to f7, and now f3 protecting the pawn. King to c7, king g2, rook g6, and here also we could have broken with b5 so that the king is open, but again he doesn't find it and goes queen to e3, and now we go with king to d7, rook h5 eyeing on this pawn, and here because of some time pressure he played rook to f6, but it was just a blunder because rook takes pawn is a free pawn. Queen g7, takes, we are a pawn up so we can exchange pieces. King g3, queen g6, queen f4, queen b1, with the idea of some perpetual here like this, but no, he could also attack here of course. Queen f7 check, here check, he wants to take this pawn with a check. You can see we have to gain all moves, we don't have to lose moves. And here king c8, he played one more time the same line and then took the pawn. Now he's 2 pawns up, and now of course the ending is great. You can see that he converts into one more queen and black is not in time to make his queen and make a draw. His king is also safe now on d7, no checks, and after d4, queen, d3, queen to d8, and in the next move this is a checkmate, this is a checkmate, everything is checkmate, so black resigned. And here Anish Giri won all the games against the Petrov. So I guess in this time control of 5+0, Baadur Jobava had not to play Petrov, but everything is learning. So I hope that you like this video. You would also get some tricks against Petrov in this position where Anish played the move, let's say he played pawn to g3, put in his king on g2, and he maneuvered everything. Baadur Jobava on the other side also played seemingly good, but he didn't have that luck that Anish Giri had, and Anish Giri won that tournament the second time. He won the Mr.Dodgy Invitational 1 as well as 2 and showed his cunning mind in the game of chess. If you like this video and liked how Anish played, then do press the like button on this video and also subscribe our channel so that you don't miss any other video, and also it motivates us. So till then, let's meet in the next video. Till then, stay safe, play chess, goodbye.